Have you ever looked at someone and thought they were genuinely in your corner, only to later discover they were quietly cheering for your downfall? Imagine waking up tomorrow and seeing every hidden conversation, every secret message, every lie told about your name, every smile that concealed jealousy, and every moment someone celebrated your pain while pretending to care. The truth would leave you speechless. Some people don't leave obvious scars. They slowly drain your peace, manipulate your trust, and disguise betrayal as friendship. That's why discernment is one of the greatest gifts you can possess. Not everyone who has access to your life deserves a permanent place in it. Sometimes the people you keep defending are the very ones creating the storms you're praying to escape. This message isn't about living in fear or becoming bitter. It's about opening your eyes to the power of wisdom, healthy boundaries, and self-respect. There comes a moment when protecting your peace becomes more important than protecting someone's feelings. The strongest people aren't those who tolerate endless disrespect. They're the ones who recognize when enough is enough and choose to walk away with dignity. If you've ever ignored red flags, forgiven too quickly, or trusted someone who eventually revealed their true intentions, this message is for you. Today, you're going to discover why every betrayal carries a lesson, why every disappointment uncovers hidden truth, and why removing toxic people from your life isn't a loss. It's often the beginning of your greatest victory. Stay with me until the very end, because what you're about to hear could completely transform the way you choose the people you allow into your life. Protect your future and reclaim the peace that has always belonged to you. There comes a moment in every person's life when the truth arrives without warning, and when it does, nothing looks the same again. Imagine discovering that the people you defended were secretly damaging your reputation, that the ones who smiled in your face were quietly celebrating your setbacks, and that the people you trusted with your dreams were hoping those dreams would never come true. It sounds unbelievable until it happens to you. The hardest betrayals rarely come from strangers, because strangers have never been close enough to break your heart. Real betrayal comes wrapped in familiarity. It comes through people who know your fears, your insecurities, your goals, and your weaknesses. They gather pieces of your life not to help build you, but to quietly use those pieces against you when the opportunity appears. That is why wisdom is more valuable than popularity, because not everyone who enters your life deserves unlimited access to your mind, your heart, or your future. Some people study you not because they admire you, but because they are searching for the perfect way to benefit from you. They applaud your success publicly, while secretly hoping your next step ends in failure. They ask personal questions, not because they genuinely care, but because information is power in the hands of someone with hidden motives. They become experts at pretending. They know exactly what to say, exactly how to act, and exactly when to appear supportive. Yet behind closed doors, their conversations tell a completely different story. They question your character, minimize your achievements, and spread seeds of doubt among others. The tragedy is that you often never see it, because genuine people naturally expect honesty from others. You assume people think the way you think. You believe they celebrate your victories because you celebrate theirs. You believe they protect your name because you protect theirs. Unfortunately, not everyone carries the same heart. Some people view kindness as weakness and loyalty as something to exploit. They mistake your patience for permission and your forgiveness for endless tolerance. But here's what they never understand. Every lie eventually becomes too heavy to carry. Every mask eventually slips. Every hidden motive eventually reveals itself through consistent behavior. The truth has a remarkable way of surfacing, even when people spend years trying to bury it. You may not discover everything immediately, but life has a way of exposing character over time. The person who constantly creates confusion eventually reveals they were the source of it all along. The one who always seems surrounded by drama eventually proves that drama followed them because they carried it within themselves. The greatest mistake you can make is ignoring the quiet warnings your spirit keeps sending. Have you ever noticed how your peace changes around certain people? You cannot quite explain it, but something feels different. Your energy becomes heavy. Your confidence starts shrinking. You begin questioning yourself in ways you never did before. Those feelings should never be dismissed. Discernment often whispers long before evidence begins to shout. Your intuition notices patterns your conscious mind has not fully processed yet. Sometimes you continue giving chance after chance because your heart hopes people will change. Hope is beautiful, but hope without wisdom can become dangerous. There comes a point where repeated behavior stops being a mistake and starts becoming a pattern. Patterns reveal character far better than promises ever could. Someone can apologize 100 times, but if their actions never change, the apology becomes nothing more than another strategy to maintain access to your life. This is why boundaries are not acts of cruelty. They are acts of wisdom. They are the invisible lines that protect your peace from people who repeatedly prove they cannot be trusted with it. You are not obligated to keep opening the same door for someone who continuously brings chaos into your home. You are not required to sacrifice your emotional well-being simply because someone has known you for years. Time does not create loyalty. Character does. Some of the newest people in your life will respect you more than those who have known you forever. Relationships should never be measured by history alone, but by consistency, honesty, and mutual respect. The people who truly value you will never need to manipulate you into staying. They will protect your trust because they understand its value. They will celebrate your victories without jealousy, correct you without humiliating you, and support your growth even when it inspires them to grow themselves. Those are the people worth keeping close. Everyone else eventually reveals that their presence was a lesson, not a lifelong assignment. If you knew everything certain people had done behind your back, you wouldn't hesitate to block them, not out of anger, but out of wisdom. Protecting your peace is not revenge. It is one of the greatest expressions of self-respect. Sometimes, the most powerful decision you will ever make is quietly closing the door on those who repeatedly proved they never deserved the key in the first place. One of the greatest misconceptions in life is believing that everyone who enters your circle values your heart the way you value theirs. The truth is, some people are drawn to your life, not because they appreciate who you are, but because they see what they can gain from your kindness. They recognize your willingness to forgive, your habit of giving second chances, your desire to see the best in others, and instead of honoring those qualities, they begin to exploit them. At first, it happens so subtly that you barely notice. They ask for small favors that slowly become constant expectations. They lean on your strength but disappear when you need support. They celebrate your generosity while quietly taking more than they ever intend to give back. Before long, you find yourself carrying the emotional weight of a relationship that was never balanced to begin with. This is the painful reality of misplaced trust. Kindness is one of the most beautiful qualities a person can possess, but when kindness is offered without wisdom, it can become an open invitation for manipulation. There are people who have mastered the art of appearing loyal while secretly serving only themselves. They know exactly which words will soften your heart. They know when to apologize, when to flatter you, and when to act vulnerable enough to earn another opportunity. Yet behind every carefully chosen word is a pattern of behavior that never truly changes. They continue crossing the same boundaries, breaking the same promises, and creating the same disappointments, because they have learned something dangerous. They have learned that you will always make another excuse for them. Every time you overlook disrespect, you unintentionally teach people how they are allowed to treat you. Every time you remain silent when your values are ignored, you communicate that your peace is negotiable. Every time you sacrifice your own well-being just to keep someone comfortable, you send the message that your needs come second. Healthy relationships are never built on one person constantly giving, while the other constantly taking. They are built on mutual respect, honesty, appreciation, and accountability. Without those foundations, even the strongest connection eventually begins to crack. Think about the moments when your intuition quietly warned you that something felt wrong. Maybe it was the way they only contacted you when they needed something. Maybe it was how they dismissed your achievements but expected endless applause for theirs. Maybe it was how every conversation somehow became about their problems while your struggles were quickly brushed aside. Those moments were not random. They were small pieces of truth trying to reveal a much larger picture. But because your heart wanted to believe the best, you convinced yourself that things would improve. You gave more patience, more understanding, more forgiveness, hoping your love would inspire change. Unfortunately, genuine transformation cannot be forced by someone else's compassion. People only change when they choose to confront their own character. Your kindness cannot heal someone who refused to acknowledge the harm they cause. Your loyalty cannot create honesty in someone committed to deception. Your love cannot replace another person's integrity. This realization is difficult because compassionate people naturally want to fix what is broken. They believe every conflict can be solved through communication, empathy, and perseverance. While those qualities are admirable, they cannot repair relationships where respect no longer exists. Respect is the foundation upon which every lasting relationship stands. Once respect disappears, manipulation often takes its place. Manipulators rarely use obvious force. Instead, they rely on guilt, confusion, emotional inconsistency, and false promises. They make you question your memory, doubt your instincts, and feel responsible for problems they created. Over time, you begin apologizing for things that were never your fault, while they avoid responsibility for actions that clearly harmed you. This emotional imbalance slowly steals your confidence until you no longer recognize the strong, peaceful person you once were. That is why boundaries are not walls designed to keep everyone out. They are gates that allow the right people to enter while protecting you from those who repeatedly prove they cannot be trusted. Setting boundaries does not mean your heart has become cold. It means your wisdom has finally caught up with your compassion. You can still be loving without becoming available for exploitation. You can still forgive without reopening doors that lead back to pain. You can still wish someone well without allowing them unlimited access to your life. One of the greatest acts of self-respect is understanding that not everyone deserves a front row seat in your journey. Some people were only meant to teach you the value of discernment. Others were meant to reveal how powerful your resilience truly is. Their betrayal was not the end of your story. It became the lesson that strengthened your spirit. As painful as it may be to accept, losing people who constantly drained your energy is not a punishment. It is often one of life's greatest gifts. Their absence creates room for healthier relationships, clearer thinking, renewed confidence, and deeper peace. The people who genuinely belong in your life will never require you to abandon your self-worth in order to keep them close. They will respect your boundaries, celebrate your growth, protect your trust, and encourage your purpose. The moment you stop chasing approval from those who never valued you is the moment you begin discovering the incredible freedom that comes from choosing yourself. Sometimes the most life-changing decision you will ever make is realizing that your kindness was never the problem. The problem was giving it to people who only saw it as something to use. From this day forward, let your compassion remain strong, but let your wisdom become even stronger, because a peaceful life is built not only by the love you give, but also by the boundaries you have the courage to keep. Have you ever looked back on a painful chapter of your life and suddenly realized the warning signs had been there all along? It's one of the most humbling experiences a person can have. At the time, everything seemed confusing. You kept giving people the benefit of the doubt. You explained away their strange behavior. You convinced yourself that you were overthinking, that you were being too sensitive, or that tomorrow would somehow be different. But once the truth finally comes to light, every memory begins to fit together like pieces of a puzzle. The conversations that once felt slightly off suddenly make perfect sense. The moments when they seemed uncomfortable with your success become impossible to ignore. The compliments that carried hidden criticism reveal their true meaning. The promises they constantly broke no longer look like accidents, but like patterns that were quietly shaping the entire relationship from the very beginning. This is one of life's greatest lessons. The truth rarely appears all at once. More often, it whispers long before it ever speaks loudly. The problem is that many of us have been taught to silence our intuition in order to keep the peace. We fear appearing judgmental, so we ignore what our spirit is trying to tell us. We fear losing people, so we tolerate behavior that slowly destroys our peace. We fear being alone, so we cling to relationships that have already stopped being healthy. Yet your intuition is one of the greatest gifts you possess. It notices what your eyes cannot yet explain. It recognizes inconsistencies before your mind gathers enough evidence to form conclusions. There is a quiet wisdom within every person that senses when words and actions no longer align. Someone may tell you they support you, but something inside you notices that they never celebrate your victories with genuine excitement. They may claim to be loyal, yet they disappear whenever you need them most. They may promise honesty, but every conversation leaves you feeling more confused than before. These are not insignificant details. They are signals. They are reminders that character is always revealed through consistent behavior, never through beautiful speeches alone. Too many people fall in love with potential instead of paying attention to reality. They keep hoping someone will become the person they imagine, rather than accepting the person standing in front of them. Hope is powerful, but hope should never replace wisdom. When someone's actions repeatedly contradict their words, believe the actions. Actions require effort. Words require only intention. A person can tell you they care 1,000 times, but if their behavior continually creates pain, disappointment, and distrust, then their actions have already spoken the truth. One of the most dangerous habits is ignoring repeated patterns simply because you are emotionally invested. Every unhealthy relationship follows recognizable cycles. There is the apology, followed by temporary improvement, followed by another betrayal, another excuse, another promise, and then the cycle begins again. With each repetition, your standards become lower, while their confidence in crossing your boundaries becomes higher. They begin assuming you will always stay because you always have before. This is how manipulation quietly grows. It rarely begins with obvious cruelty. It begins with small compromises that slowly become normal. A disrespectful comment here, a broken promise there, a lie that seems too small to confront, a moment of selfishness that you choose to overlook. Eventually, what once would have shocked you becomes something you simply tolerate. Without realizing it, you adapt to dysfunction until dysfunction feels familiar. That is why self-awareness is so important. Every relationship should bring more peace than confusion, more encouragement than insecurity, and more trust than suspicion. If someone consistently leaves you emotionally exhausted, questioning your worth, or doubting your own judgment, it is time to stop asking whether you are expecting too much and start asking whether you are accepting too little. Healthy people do not require you to abandon your peace in order to keep them comfortable. They do not punish you for having boundaries. They do not compete with your success or secretly hope you fail. Genuine relationships are built on mutual respect, honest communication, and sincere celebration of each other's growth. When those qualities disappear, no amount of history can compensate for the absence of trust. Many people stay connected to harmful relationships simply because they have invested years into them. But time alone does not make a relationship valuable. Character does, loyalty does, respect does. A person who has known you for 10 years but repeatedly damages your peace is not more deserving of your trust than someone who has known you for 6 months and consistently treats you with honesty and kindness. Your future should never be held hostage by your past. Sometimes the bravest decision is accepting that a chapter has ended, even if it lasted for years. Letting go does not erase the good memories. It simply acknowledges that the relationship no longer reflects the life you are trying to build. Every ending creates space for a healthier beginning. Every boundary protects the version of yourself that is still growing. Every lesson teaches you to recognize what you once overlooked. The signs were always there, but now you see them with clearer eyes. That clarity is not meant to make you bitter. It is meant to make you wiser. It is meant to remind you that your peace is valuable, your intuition is trustworthy, and your future deserves people who celebrate your presence, instead of secretly hoping for your downfall. Never apologize for protecting the life that you have worked so hard to build. The people who truly belong in your journey will never make you regret trusting them. They will prove through consistent actions that your confidence in them was well placed. And once you learn to recognize the difference between genuine loyalty and carefully disguised deception, you will never again settle for relationships that require you to ignore the truth your heart recognized from the very beginning. One of the most liberating truths you will ever discover is that protecting your peace is far more powerful than seeking revenge. When someone betrays your trust, spreads lies about your name, manipulates your kindness, or secretly works against you, the natural reaction is to want justice immediately. You may imagine confronting them with undeniable evidence, exposing every lie they told, or making them feel the same pain they caused you. Those emotions are real, and they are deeply human. But if you allow those emotions to control your future, you unknowingly give the very people who hurt you the power to shape your life. Revenge may promise satisfaction, but it rarely delivers lasting peace. It keeps your attention locked on the past, while your future patiently waits for you to move forward. Every moment spent replaying betrayal is a moment stolen from the life you are capable of creating. That is why truly strong people understand a secret that many never learn. The greatest victory is not making your enemies suffer. It is refusing to let their actions steal your joy, your purpose, or your identity. Think about it. Some people expect you to react. They expect you to argue, defend yourself endlessly, explain your every decision, or become consumed by anger. They are prepared for conflict because conflict gives them attention and influence. What they are not prepared for is your silence. They are not prepared for your confidence. They are not prepared for the day you stop chasing their approval and simply continue building a life that no longer depends on their opinion. Silence, when chosen with wisdom, is not weakness. It is a declaration that your peace is too valuable to be traded for unnecessary battles. Every unnecessary argument drains emotional energy, that could have been invested in your dreams, your family, your purpose, and your personal growth. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack filled with stones. Every grudge, every resentment, every desire for revenge adds another stone to the load. The farther you walk, the heavier it becomes. Eventually, you realize the weight is not being carried by the people who hurt you. It is being carried by you. The moment you choose to set that backpack down, your journey becomes lighter. Forgiveness does not mean pretending the betrayal never happened. It does not mean inviting toxic people back into your life, or allowing harmful behavior to continue without consequences. Forgiveness simply means refusing to let bitterness become a permanent resident in your heart. You release the emotional burden without removing the lessons that experience taught you. There is a profound difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. Not every forgiven relationship should be restored. Some doors remain closed because wisdom remembers what emotions sometimes forget. Trust is one of the most valuable gifts you can offer another person, and once it has been repeatedly broken, rebuilding it requires consistent actions, not empty promises. Anyone can apologize when they fear losing access to your life, but genuine change is demonstrated through transformed behavior over time. Never confuse regret over consequences with sincere repentance. Many people are sorry they were exposed, not sorry they caused harm. That distinction matters because it protects you from repeating the same painful cycle. Boundaries become essential at this stage of healing. Many people misunderstand boundaries as acts of rejection, but in reality, they are acts of self-respect. They are healthy reminders that your emotional well-being deserves protection. A boundary says, I value myself enough to no longer accept behavior that destroys my peace. It is not built out of hatred, but out of wisdom earned through experience. Some people will criticize your boundaries because they benefited from your lack of them. They became comfortable crossing lines you never enforced. The moment you begin saying no, prioritizing your well-being, and refusing to tolerate disrespect, they may accuse you of changing. The truth is, you are changing, and that change is exactly what your future requires. Growth often disappoints people who were comfortable with the older version of you, because the new version no longer accepts treatment that once seemed normal. You are not responsible for making everyone comfortable at the expense of your own peace. You cannot heal by remaining in environments that continue to wound you. Every flower needs healthy soil to grow, and every person needs healthy relationships to flourish. Sometimes the most courageous decision is quietly stepping away without announcing your departure. Not every battle deserves your participation. Not every accusation deserves your response. Not every misunderstanding deserves your explanation. People committed to misunderstanding you will rarely be convinced by truth, because their conclusions were never built on facts in the first place. Let your consistent character speak louder than temporary opinions. Time has a remarkable way of revealing integrity. Those who truly know your heart will recognize the difference between rumors and reality. Those who choose to believe lies without seeking the truth were never standing on a foundation of genuine trust to begin with. As you continue moving forward, remember that success built on peace is far more fulfilling than victory achieved through revenge. The energy you once spent defending yourself can now be invested in becoming the person you were always meant to be. Every healthy boundary strengthens your confidence. Every lesson deepens your wisdom. Every painful goodbye creates room for relationships rooted in honesty, respect, and mutual encouragement. One day, you will look back and realize that walking away was not losing. It was winning in the most meaningful way possible. You did not allow betrayal to define your future. You allowed it to refine your character. You became wiser without becoming bitter, stronger without becoming cruel, and more discerning without losing your capacity to love. That is true victory. That is real freedom. And that is the kind of peace no one can ever take away from you. There comes a defining moment in every person's journey when they realize that letting go is not the end of their story. It is the beginning of the life they were always meant to live. For so long, you may have believed that holding on was a sign of strength. You held on to relationships that drained your spirit, to friendships that existed only when you were useful, to people who smiled in your presence while quietly hoping for your failure, and to memories that kept pulling you back into places your future had already outgrown. You convinced yourself that if you loved harder, forgave one more time, explained yourself more clearly, or sacrificed a little more of your own peace, things would eventually change. But one of life's greatest revelations is this: you cannot force someone to value what they have already chosen to take for granted. The people who truly belong in your life will never require you to abandon your dignity just to keep them close. They will never ask you to silence your voice, ignore your intuition, or constantly prove your worth. Real love, real friendship, and real loyalty never demand that you lose yourself in order to preserve a relationship. Instead, they encourage you to become the best version of yourself. That is why every ending carries the hidden potential for a remarkable beginning. Sometimes what feels like rejection is actually protection. Sometimes the closed door you spent months trying to reopen was never meant to lead you into your future. Looking back, you may realize that every painful betrayal taught you something no comfortable season ever could. It taught you to recognize the difference between attention and genuine care. It taught you that consistency matters more than promises, that actions reveal character more clearly than words, and that trust should be earned through repeated integrity, rather than granted, simply because someone asks for it. These lessons may have arrived wrapped in disappointment, but they are among the most valuable gifts life can offer. They transform your perspective, they sharpen your discernment. They prepare you for healthier relationships that align with your values, rather than your fears. There is incredible freedom in reaching the point where you no longer chase people who have repeatedly shown they do not appreciate your presence. Instead of exhausting yourself, trying to convince others of your worth, you begin investing that energy into your own growth. You pursue new opportunities, strengthen your character, develop your talents, deepen your faith, nurture meaningful relationships, and rediscover dreams that were placed on hold while you were trying to save connections that could never be sustained by one person's effort alone. This shift changes everything. Your confidence no longer depends on someone else's approval. Your joy is no longer controlled by another person's opinion. Your peace is no longer vulnerable to those who thrive on conflict and confusion. You become emotionally independent, and that independence is one of the greatest forms of freedom a human being can experience. As you continue growing, something remarkable begins to happen. The same people who underestimated you may eventually notice your transformation. They may wonder why you are smiling again, why you seem calmer, stronger, and more focused than before. They may expect you to carry resentment, but instead they find someone who has chosen healing over bitterness. That is the greatest surprise of all. Growth is far more powerful than revenge because it produces results that no argument ever could. Your success becomes your testimony. Your peace becomes your answer. Your character becomes your response to every lie that was spoken about you. There is no greater victory than becoming someone whose life reflects resilience instead of resentment. Every challenge you survived became a chapter in your story, not the conclusion of it. Every disappointment strengthened muscles within your spirit that comfort could never develop. Every setback taught you perseverance. Every betrayal refined your discernment. Every tear watered the seeds of wisdom that would eventually grow into unshakable confidence. Never underestimate what difficult seasons can produce within a determined heart. Diamonds are formed under pressure, and some of the strongest people in the world became strong because they refused to allow hardship to have the final word. Remember this whenever you feel tempted to look back with regret. You did not lose the right people. The right people do not repeatedly betray your trust, celebrate your pain, or compete with your purpose. Those who walked away, or forced you to walk away through their actions, created space for individuals who will genuinely honor your presence. Your future deserves relationships built on respect, honesty, encouragement, and mutual growth. Never settle for less simply because loneliness feels uncomfortable for a season. Temporary loneliness is far healthier than permanent emotional exhaustion. Solitude often becomes the classroom where confidence is rebuilt, where purpose is rediscovered, and where peace quietly returns after years of chaos. It is in those quiet moments that you begin hearing your own voice again instead of the endless opinions of others. You remember who you are. You remember what matters most. You remember that your value has never been determined by the number of people who stayed but by the character you maintained, even when others chose betrayal over loyalty. As this chapter closes, let it close with hope instead of fear. Walk forward, knowing that every lesson has prepared you for something greater. Keep your heart compassionate, but let your wisdom guide your decisions. Continue believing in people, but never ignore consistent patterns that reveal their true intentions. Protect your peace without apologizing for it. Celebrate your growth without feeling guilty for leaving unhealthy environments behind. And above all, never forget that the greatest chapter of your life is not the one where you survived betrayal. It is the one where you refuse to let betrayal define who you would become. Your story is not about what others did to you. Your story is about the strength, grace, courage, and wisdom you discovered within yourself because you chose to rise above it all. That is your greatest victory, and no one can ever take it away.